Since we have looked at some of the greatest influencers of popular culture in the 20th century, let's look at the defining subculture of the 60s and 70s that were under the influence of the Beatles, Zeppelin, Tolkien, and drugs. The hippies. When we go to the biographies on Tolkien, his Lord of the Rings seems to be a quintessential factor on the hippies that never seems to be overlooked. Let's read some quotes from these sources to help give us an idea of what the reception was to the series and how it failed to bring people closer to Christ. Hippies and the political left embraced the trilogy in the mid to late 1960s. It was purportedly one of drug guru Timothy Leary's favorite books, and head shops throughout the United States sold all manner of Tolkien paraphernalia. As Beatles biographer Philip Norman has reported, The Lord of the Rings became a vital part of hippie culture, finding devotees among the devotees of Indian religion, cannabis, and free love. Said the Berkeley campus bookstore manager in 1966, "This is more than a campus craze, it's like a drug dream." A psychedelic magazine entitled Gandalf's Garden was issued with the avowed objective to bring beautiful people together. Its first issue explained that Gandalf is fast becoming absorbed in the youthful world spirit as the mythological hero of the age. It's amazing to think about how the people who seem to be so mesmerized by Middle-earth fantasies were so taken by everything that was not biblical. For those who are unaware, Timothy Leary was one of the most prominent voices during the drug revolution for the legalization of psychedelic drugs, such as LSD and magic mushrooms. In one clip, he talks about Aleister Crowley, and he had this to say about the man.
Well, I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said he was in favor of finding your own self and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, under love. It was a very powerful statement. I'm sorry he isn't around now to appreciate the glories that he started.
Speaking of drug consumption and intoxication, the promotion in The Lord of the Rings of smoking and drinking is overly apparent to anyone who reads or watches the stories. The Bible tells us in Titus 2 verse 12 that the grace of God that brings us salvation teaches us that in denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. When people watch the hobbits getting stoned and then hear about how its writer, who was such a prominent voice amongst professing Christians and Catholics, was doing the same thing according to his biographies, some might think that this is an acceptable way to behave. And if you're not born again and you don't read the scriptures, and instead look up to Tolkien and his cronies as outstanding moral Christians, I'm sure it would be pretty hard to imagine anything else. It should be noted that The Lord of the Rings intentionally or unintentionally promoted witchcraft and paganism, as some readers caught on to this and were inspired. Let's read some quotes on this subject. Hippies adopted the shire life of the hobbits as a social model, and demonstrate how neo-pagans were moved by Tolkien's enchanted world and considered the Lord of the Rings to contain metaphorical references to metaphysical realities. Indeed, for some readers, it was the Lord of the Rings that first made them wonder about the possible reality of other worlds and magic, this being their first step towards becoming pagans. Many Tolkien religionists are neo-pagans and naturally draw on Wiccan circle casting to create Tolkien-esque rituals directed at the elves and the Valar. Besides neo-paganism, Tolkien religionists draw on the Western magic tradition, theosophy, and Christianity in roughly that order of importance. Tolkien's popularity seems to have spread to Cornell, via its math department, to a black magic group at the University of Virginia, and then to the very nicest people at Bryn Mawr, a writer for Esquire reported. Kazakhstan's pro-Islamic government has arrested such Tolkien devotees for being Satanists and conducting dark rituals. Speaking about a radical environmentalist group called Elflore, which sees itself as attempting to live out the Hobbit's message of communalism and harmony with nature, is just one example of the Tolkien-inspired environmental groups that flourished primarily in the 1960s and early 1970s. There is no denying that Tolkien's books went on to inspire a lot of strange activity with the drug-fueled psychotic hippies of the 60s and 70s. It is even undeniable that if someone was involved with things like witchcraft, they weren't getting out of it thanks to Lord of the Rings. The hippie movement, which Tolkien had helped propagate, is defined for its rebelliousness and its adherents' stubbornness to grow up, in which the Bible says in 1 Samuel 15 verse 23, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry."